Have you ever found yourself in a conversation, a debate, or even a confrontation, and felt an overwhelming urge to fill every pause with words, to argue your point until you're blue in the face? Or perhaps you felt the opposite, a crushing silence imposed upon you, a silence of submission where your voice disappears, leaving you feeling small and unseen? What if I told you that true power, the kind that commands respect and shapes outcomes, often resides not in the torrent of words but in their deliberate absence? What if the silence you fear, or the silence you misuse, could become your most potent strategic asset? We live in a world that often equates noise with importance, speech with strength. But today, we're going to delve into a perspective that challenges this deeply ingrained notion. We're going to explore the profound strength found in strategic silence, drawing from the incisive wisdom of the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche and the fundamental principles of human psychology. Nietzsche, a thinker who relentlessly questioned conventional moralities and championed the ascent of the individual, offers us a lens through which silence is not emptiness, but a space of immense potential and control. His concept of the Übermensch, or overman, is not just about transcending societal norms, but about mastering oneself. And a key element of this mastery is the conscious command over one's expressions, both verbal and nonverbal. The problem we're addressing is a common human struggle, particularly resonant in our hyper-connected, often performative Western culture. There's a pervasive belief that to be heard, to be influential, to be powerful, one must always be speaking, defending, or winning verbal spars. This incessant need to respond can stem from a fragile ego, a deep-seated fear of appearing weak or uninformed. You might recognize it in the compulsion to have the last word, or the anxiety that bubbles up when a conversation falls quiet, pushing you to say something, anything, to break the tension. On the other flip of this coin is the silence of capitulation, the tendency to remain quiet not out of strength, but out of fear, intimidation, or a learned helplessness. This submissive silence, this constant concession, often leads to being overlooked, undervalued, and in many cases exploited by those who are more assertive or manipulative. You feel your boundaries erode, your needs go unmet, and a quiet resentment builds. Why does this happen? Psychologically, we are wired for connection and social validation. Silence can feel like a threat to that connection, or a sign of disapproval. Furthermore, our internal narratives, often shaped by past experiences, might tell us that being quiet means being passive or powerless. We haven't been taught to differentiate between the silence of absence and the silence of presence. Nietzsche's philosophy, particularly his idea of the Übermensch, provides a powerful framework for understanding strategic silence. The Übermensch is an ideal of a human being who has overcome traditional values and the herd mentality to create their own values and affirm their own life. This individual is characterized by immense self-discipline, self-mastery, and a profound will to power, not power over others in a tyrannical sense, but power over oneself, the power to shape one's own destiny and impact the world through authentic strength. For the Übermensch, communication is not merely an exchange of information, but an assertion of will, a tool for influence. Silence, in this context, becomes a deliberate choice, a calculated move on the chessboard of human interaction. It's the pause that underscores a point more effectively than shouting. It's the withholding of a reaction that denies an opponent their expected satisfaction or escalation. It's the calm self-possession that communicates unshakable resolve. Think of it. When someone remains composed and silent while another is losing their temper, who truly appears to be in control? Nietzsche understood that true strength isn't always loud. Often, it's the quiet force, the understated authority that holds the most sway. This isn't about being aloof or dismissive for the sake of it. It's about understanding that your words have value, and therefore your silence also has value. It's about choosing when to deploy each for maximum impact, to protect your inner state, and to navigate the world from a position of centered strength rather than reactive insecurity. And it's here that Nietzsche's analysis becomes even more crucial, as we'll see when exploring the shift from passive to active silence. What are the consequences if you continue to ignore the strategic power of silence, if you remain trapped in either compulsive speech or submissive quietness? If you're constantly over-talking, you risk diluting your message, appearing insecure, and exhausting those around you. You might win trivial arguments but lose respect. Your words, because they are too frequent and less considered, lose their weight. People learn to tune you out, or worse, they learn how to provoke you, to pull your strings using your own predictability. Conversely, if you habitually fall into submissive silence, you teach others that your boundaries are permeable, that your voice doesn't matter. This can lead to a life of quiet desperation, where your needs are chronically unmet, your potential remains unrealized, and you become a canvas for others' projections and demands. Opportunities will pass you by because you failed to make your presence felt, not through noise but through a grounded sense of self that silence can help cultivate. The cost is your agency, your peace of mind, and ultimately, the respect you have for yourself. You remain a pawn in the games of others, rather than a conscious player in your own life. But here lies the point of virata, the turning point. Nietzsche's insights, coupled with an understanding of psychology, don't offer a magical incantation, but they illuminate a path toward a profound shift in how you wield your presence. The solution is to cultivate what we might call a silence of presence. This isn't the empty, anxious silence of submission, nor is it the arrogant silence of disdain. It is a silence born of self-awareness, control, and an understanding of its strategic value. It's recognizing that in many situations, saying less or nothing at all can be far more powerful than any verbal barrage. It's about learning to be comfortable in the spaces between words, to use those spaces to observe, to think, to project composure and strength. This is where you begin to transform silence from a symbol of powerlessness into a tool of empowerment. It's about choosing your engagements, understanding that not every perceived slight requires a retort, not every question demands an immediate answer, and not every silence needs to be filled by you. How do you cultivate this silence of presence? It begins with introspection. You must first become aware of your own patterns. When do you tend to overtalk? What triggers your defensive verbosity? Conversely, when do you fall into submissive silence? What fears or insecurities are at play? This self-awareness is the bedrock. Next, practice active listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak, but truly hearing what is being said and what is not being said. Often the most important information in an interaction is conveyed non-verbally, or in the subtext. Strategic silence gives you the space to perceive this. Then, begin to experiment with deliberate pauses in your conversations. Before reacting, take a breath. This small gap can be enough to shift from a reactive mode to a responsive one. It gives you a moment to choose your response, or to choose silence if that is more powerful. This practice builds emotional regulation, a core component of Nietzsche's self-mastery. You also learn to hold your ground non-verbally. Your posture, your eye contact, your calm demeanor can speak volumes, creating a field of influence that doesn't require constant vocal reinforcement. This is about occupying your space with a quiet confidence that signals you are not to be trifled with, nor are you easily provoked. It's a silence that says, I am here, I am aware, and I am in control of myself. This transforms interactions. Instead of being pulled into others' emotional storms, you become the calm center. Now let's be clear. This path of mastering strategic silence is not without its challenges. It demands courage and discipline. Initially, choosing silence when your every instinct screams to speak can feel intensely uncomfortable. You might be misunderstood. Those accustomed to your previous patterns of communication, whether excessive talking or easy submission, might react negatively. They might try to provoke you, to push your buttons, to draw you back into old dynamics. As Nietzsche himself wrote, in an aphorism from The Wanderer and His Shadow, the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. When you begin to operate from this place of centered strategic silence, you are, in essence, soaring to a new level of self-awareness and control. Those who are still grounded in reactive patterns, those who cannot perceive the strength in your newfound quietude, may indeed see you as smaller, or misinterpret your silence as aloofness, disinterest, or even weakness, ironically. This is the resistance of the status quo, both internal and external. There can be a loneliness in this, the feeling of being out of sync with the prevailing noisiness of the world. You must be prepared for this discomfort, for this period of recalibration in your relationships and in your own self-perception. Confronting your own ego's desire for constant validation, or its fear of being perceived negatively, is a significant hurdle. It requires you to find your validation internally, not externally. But the reward for navigating these challenges is immense. By mastering strategic silence, you cultivate an unshakable inner fortress. You develop a profound sense of self-possession. You are no longer a slave to your impulses or the provocations of others. You gain clarity of thought because in silence you can truly hear yourself think. Your words, when you do choose to speak, gain weight and impact because they are more considered, more intentional. You become a more astute observer of human nature, able to read situations and people with greater accuracy. This silence of presence allows you to command respect without demanding it. It's a quiet authority that emanates from a place of genuine strength and self-knowledge. You become the architect of your interactions, choosing when and how to engage, rather than being a mere reactor. This is the essence of what Nietzsche pointed towards, the individual who masters themselves, who defines their own terms of engagement with the world. This is not about becoming unfeeling or disconnected. It's about becoming more authentically and powerfully connected, first to yourself, and then, on your own terms, to others. It's about transforming from a leaf blown by the winds of circumstance and others' wills into a deeply rooted tree, silent and strong in your own sovereign space. If these explorations into the architecture of your mind resonate with you, ensure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future deep dives. We are committed to journeying with you towards profound self-understanding and empowerment. Now, I want you to reflect. What is one situation in your life where you typically react with too many words, or with a silence that feels powerless? And what is one small step you can take this week to practice strategic silence in a similar context? Share your commitment in the comments below. Your journey can inspire others, and speaking your intention is the first step to embodying it. Remember, true strength doesn't always roar. Often, it's the silence that speaks volumes, the silence that holds the line, the silence that allows you to hear the quiet voice of your own deepest wisdom.